Something strange unfolded on Halloween night in 2025, while much of the world was caught up in celebration. In Washington, D.C., a very different atmosphere took hold. Behind the scenes, the U.S. Capitol slipped into a state of quiet alarm. NASA had just briefed a small group of lawmakers about the interstellar object known as 3I Atlas, which had recently made its closest pass near Mars. But instead of sharing the findings publicly, the agency locked everything down. Within hours, the federal government moved into a heightened state of alert. Closed-door meetings multiplied, images were withheld, and tensions spread through the White House, NASA, and Congress, marking one of the most secretive space-related confrontations in modern U.S. history. The escalation began with a single letter. On October 31, 2025, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida sent an urgent request to NASA's acting administrator, Sean Duffy. Her demand left no room for ambiguity. She called for the immediate release of all images and all scientific data connected to 3I Atlas. In her message, she accused NASA of deliberately keeping critical information hidden from both the public and elected officials. The letter represented the first open acknowledgement that something serious was happening behind closed doors. Inside Washington, the mood shifted almost instantly. Luna's action was not based on rumor or speculation. It was a direct challenge rooted in suspicion and a demand for transparency. NASA's silence had already stretched on for weeks following the object's close approach to Mars. Each day without new information only intensified the uncertainty. For national security officials, the timing was especially troubling. October 31st was not just symbolic. It was the same night reports emerged that foreign observatories had detected unusual light emissions coming from 3I Atlas. If those reports were accurate, it meant other nations could already be studying data that NASA had chosen not to release. Lawmakers pushed for answers, but the agency's hesitation made the situation feel far more serious than a routine delay. Across several government agencies, alert levels quietly increased. What had once seemed like a harmless interstellar visitor was now treated as an issue of national concern. At the center of the growing unease was a collection of high-resolution images that no one outside NASA had been allowed to see. These were not ordinary telescope photographs. They were taken by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's HiRISE camera, one of the most powerful imaging systems ever sent beyond Earth. Captured between October 2nd and October 3rd, 2025, the images documented 3I Atlas as it passed uncomfortably close to Mars. HiRISE is capable of resolving details far sharper than even the Hubble Space Telescope, nearly 3 times more precise. With that level of clarity, the images could reveal the object's structure, surface makeup, active processes, and whether it behaved like a typical comet or something far more unusual. Yet the images never appeared in NASA's public archives. They were absent from press briefings, and even prominent planetary scientists were unable to access them weeks after they were taken. When word leaked that the images existed but were being withheld, accusations of a cover-up spread rapidly. Researchers began to notice irregularities in NASA's official timeline. Datasets that were normally released within 2 days of capture were still missing more than 3 weeks later. The lack of explanation only deepened suspicion. Around this time, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, known for his provocative ideas about interstellar objects, published a blog post titled "Fuzzy Images of 3I Atlas." In it, he confirmed that HiRISE data had been collected and suggested that the delay had little to do with calibration or routine checks. Instead, he hinted that the real issue might be the nature of what the images revealed. While Washington debated transparency behind closed doors, Beijing moved decisively. On October 2, 2025, only days after Congresswoman Luna's letter drew public attention, the China National Space Administration quietly released a set of color-corrected images of 3I Atlas taken near Mars. Within hours, the images spread across social media, scientific communities, and international news platforms. They were striking. The object appeared to glow with an unusual bluish tint, surrounded by faint, symmetrical bands of light. The clarity of the images suggested deliberate, high-quality observation, possibly from China's Tianwen-2 mission or advanced ground-based systems. The contrast was impossible to ignore. China appeared open and confident, while NASA remained silent. In Washington, concern quickly shifted into something closer to panic. Members of Congress demanded to know why China had managed to publish its findings, while the United States, long regarded as a leader in planetary science, had released nothing. Publicly, NASA officials pointed to the ongoing government shutdown, stating that non-essential operations, including the release of raw HiRISE data, had been paused. Privately, few believed that explanation. American scientists who examined the Chinese images noticed features that raised new questions. The halo around 3I Atlas did not behave like a normal cloud of gas and dust. Instead, faint streaks extended outward at regular intervals, forming patterns that looked almost like rings. Some dismissed the effect as a processing artifact. Others were far less convinced. When NASA finally addressed the issue publicly, its explanation only fueled skepticism. In an official statement, the agency blamed the federal shutdown for the delay, claiming that scientific processing and public data releases had been temporarily halted. On paper, the reasoning sounded plausible. In practice, it raised more doubts. By then, the images had been withheld for more than 3 weeks, long enough for suspicion to harden into outrage. Congresswoman Luna openly rejected NASA's justification, calling the delay an unacceptable failure of transparency on a matter with global implications. Her question echoed across Washington. If China could analyze and release Mars-related data during the same period, why couldn't NASA? Behind closed doors, congressional aides revealed that internal NASA communications told a different story. Teams responsible for processing data from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter had continued working through the shutdown under mission-critical status. That meant the images were already processed, reviewed, and cataloged. Someone had made the decision not to release them. During emergency briefings, senior NASA officials insisted the delay was procedural. However, classified intelligence briefings shared with select lawmakers suggested a more complex reality. According to those reports, contractors working with the government had detected unusual spectral signatures from 3I Atlas just before the HiRISE data was sealed. The readings reportedly pointed to high levels of reflective metals, including nickel and uncommon alloys rarely associated with comets. When NASA finally faced Congress in a closed-door session, the atmosphere was strained. Agency representatives arrived carrying folders marked restricted, and their laptops were secured under heightened security measures, an unusual sight for what was supposed to be a scientific discussion. Acting Administrator Sean Duffy opened the meeting with a composed, carefully scripted statement, stressing that NASA was adhering to established procedures. But as the briefing continued, lawmakers grew increasingly uneasy. NASA confirmed that HiRISE had successfully captured images of 3I Atlas during its Mars flyby. Duffy claimed that issues with image quality and data inconsistencies were preventing public release, citing ongoing calibration tests and alleged sensor anomalies in early frames. To those familiar with orbital imaging, the explanation rang hollow. HiRISE had a long-standing reputation for exceptional reliability and clarity. Then came a disclosure that shifted the tone of the room entirely and set the stage for what followed next. During questioning, one of NASA's imaging experts acknowledged that the HiRISE photographs showed unusual optical features. These were not simple pixel distortions or equipment malfunctions. They were repeating light patterns occurring at precise intervals. The effect appeared across multiple frames, captured from different viewing angles and spanning several wavelengths. It was clearly not a software error. Something near Mars was reflecting light in an organized, deliberate manner. Outside the hearing room, information began to circulate that the Department of Defense had quietly requested access to the same HiRISE image files. This detail, later confirmed by a Senate aide, suggested that 3I Atlas was no longer being treated solely as a scientific subject. It had crossed into the domain of national security. In the days following NASA's closed-door testimony, the atmosphere in Washington shifted from restrained unease to active containment. What had begun as an astronomical puzzle was now being managed like a classified crisis. By early October 2025, senior figures from NASA, the Pentagon, the Department of Energy, and the House Science Committee were called into a series of confidential meetings held inside a secure facility within the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, just steps from the White House. What emerged in those sessions, at least privately, was deeply unsettling. NASA scientists reportedly presented summaries of spectral data collected by both the HiRISE camera and the MAVEN mission. The analysis revealed highly unusual reflectivity signatures, consistent with metallic alloys rarely associated with natural celestial objects. One briefing slide, later leaked to investigative journalists, included a phrase that sent a chill through the room: possible engineered composition. Within 48 hours, senior lawmakers from both political parties began receiving classified briefings on the 3I Atlas situation. Each summary emphasized that the detected emission patterns were unverified but distinctly non-random, and advised against public commentary until further confirmation could be obtained from allied observatories. The message was unmistakable. NASA was no longer evaluating an ordinary comet. It was examining something that might not be natural at all. At the same time, the Pentagon's involvement intensified. Analysts from the Defense Intelligence Agency and U.S. Space Command formally requested direct access to NASA's data archives, citing potential links to directed energy emission signatures. Although no signs of hostile intent were identified, coordination between military and civilian agencies escalated almost overnight. The president's science advisor was briefed in a private session, and according to one source familiar with the meeting, he left visibly shaken. The following day, the administration quietly approved a temporary reallocation of funds to NASA through an executive order labeled a scientific emergency contingency. The move allowed the agency to pursue off-budget research into 3I Atlas under restricted oversight, effectively creating a classified research effort shielded from public scrutiny. For weeks after that, Washington maintained a unified silence. Media inquiries were rerouted, congressional questions were sidestepped, and NASA's public website remained unchanged, displaying routine updates about Martian weather and lunar soil studies. Then, late one night, the barrier of secrecy finally broke. An anonymous source, later believed to be a contractor within the U.S. Geological Survey's Planetary Imaging Division, leaked a fragment of a classified briefing to an independent science journalist. The leaked material included metadata and low-resolution thumbnails that appeared to come from the unreleased high-res images of 3I Atlas. Within hours, the files began spreading across encrypted online forums and X, formerly known as Twitter. NASA responded swiftly, dismissing the images as fabricated composites. However, experts around the world noticed a detail that was nearly impossible to counterfeit. The file headers matched HiRise's proprietary encryption format, something that could only be generated by NASA's internal systems. That detail strongly suggested the images were real. Less than 24 hours later, the leak reached major news organizations. The story exploded across global media outlets with headlines declaring that images of 3I Atlas had surfaced online, confirming a NASA cover-up. Public reaction was immediate and intense. Hashtags such as #AtlasFiles and #NASAHidTheTruth surged worldwide. Independent analysts began dissecting the leaked visuals, pointing out structural features in the light distribution, triangular geometries, sharply defined edges, and reflections that appeared metallic in nature. Then came the revelation that sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. Along with the images, the leaker had included a brief excerpt from a restricted interagency memorandum. The sentence that immediately drew attention stated, "Preliminary analysis suggests patterned emission inconsistent with natural outgassing behavior." That single line shifted the entire narrative. As the U.S. government struggled to contain the growing leaks, China moved decisively. On October 6, 2025, the China National Space Administration released its own high-resolution images of 3I Atlas, captured by the Tianwen-2 orbiter during its observation window near Mars. Within minutes, the images spread worldwide, unfiltered, unrestricted, and deeply unsettling. The photographs revealed 3I Atlas in unprecedented detail. It appeared as a luminous object marked by complex, organized patterns across its surface. It was not merely glowing. It seemed to pulse, emitting synchronized waves of blue and white light. Even the most cautious scientists found it impossible to dismiss what they were seeing. Unlike NASA's prolonged silence, China accompanied its release with a carefully crafted statement. Preliminary imaging confirms structured reflection patterns inconsistent with typical cometary behavior. That phrase alone, structured reflection patterns, was enough to ignite global panic. News networks went into non-stop coverage. Headlines flashed across every major outlet, declaring that China had confirmed unnatural structure on 3I Atlas. Online forums erupted with speculation ranging from alien technology to clandestine probes, while governments worldwide scrambled to manage public perception. Inside Washington, the response was swift and explosive. Lawmakers accused NASA of losing control of the narrative in what many called a cosmic information war. Members of the House Science Committee reportedly demanded an immediate emergency briefing, charging that the agency had allowed a foreign power to dominate the global conversation. This was no longer just a scientific issue. It had become a matter of authority, trust, and international credibility. At the same time, panic surged online. Videos dissecting the Chinese footage frame by frame began circulating, highlighting sharp geometric edges and rhythmic pulses that some claimed resembled encoded signals. Hashtags like TS-signal and #LightObject trended globally within hours. The Chinese Academy of Sciences soon added fuel to the fire, issuing a follow-up statement asserting that their instruments had detected faint radio emissions synchronized with the object's light pulses. The signal reportedly repeated at exact intervals, prompting speculation that it was not simple reflected sunlight. If accurate, it would suggest that 3I Atlas was actively generating energy or transmitting information. something no known natural comet could do. By mid-October 2025, the situation had spiraled far beyond Washington's control. What began as quiet secrecy had transformed into open public backlash. Demands for answers grew louder by the day, and NASA, once viewed as the world's most trusted scientific authority, was now accused of deliberate deception. Protesters gathered outside NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C., holding signs reading, "Release the Atlas files and we fund the truth." The movement expanded rapidly beyond conspiracy circles. Scientists, engineers, and even former NASA personnel joined calls for full transparency. Universities released open letters urging the agency to rebuild public trust by declassifying all data related to 3I Atlas. Under mounting pressure, NASA finally agreed to hold an emergency press conference. It took place on October 16th and was broadcast live around the globe. The room was packed with journalists, members of Congress, and representatives from the European Space Agency and the Pentagon. At the podium stood NASA's acting administrator, Sean Duffy, his expression tense and somber. He began by acknowledging that 3I Atlas presented unprecedented observational challenges and confirmed that multiple instruments, including the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and the James Webb Space Telescope, had collected data still undergoing analysis. When questioned about the Chinese images showing structured light emissions, Duffy hesitated before responding. "We are currently verifying the integrity of the external data," he said. That single phrase, verifying the integrity, sent social media into immediate uproar. Analysts and reporters accused NASA of once again evading the core issue. Moments later, a Reuters journalist asked whether 3I Atlas posed any potential risk to Earth. Duffy's reply was cautious but revealing. "There are no indications at this time that the object's trajectory presents a danger to our planet," he said, stressing the words, "at this time." It was the pause, the uncertainty, that unsettled audiences worldwide. In the days that followed, internal documents leaked from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center showed that orbital models were being updated continuously. Minute deviations in 3I Atlas's trajectory, measured in fractions of millimeters per second squared, were slowly accumulating. The same type of unexplained acceleration that once baffled scientists studying Oumuamua was appearing again, but more pronounced. Independent researchers ran their own simulations, and some projected a troubling possibility. If the acceleration trend continued, 3I Atlas could pass far closer to Earth than initially predicted, potentially within lunar distance by early 2026. Washington rushed to control the fallout. The White House Office of Science released a carefully phrased statement affirming that 3I Atlas remained under constant observation and posed no credible threat. Few found reassurance in those words. Meanwhile, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb publicly broke with the official stance, accusing NASA of deliberate silence. In multiple interviews, he argued that withholding the HiRISE and Webb data amounted to censorship. If China observed geometric structures and NASA refuses to deny it, he said bluntly, the public deserves to know what is being concealed. By late October 2025, the crisis surrounding 3I Atlas crossed a point of no return. Public outrage, congressional pressure, and mounting evidence from international observatories forced the U.S. government into an extraordinary move. A classified, multi-agency emergency briefing held inside Washington under the highest security clearance. Attendance was limited to select members of Congress, senior Pentagon officials, representatives from the CIA, and NASA's top scientists. What occurred inside that darkened briefing room was never officially disclosed, though fragments later surfaced. The presentation opened with imagery from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's HiRISE camera. Initial slides showed what appeared to be a conventional interstellar comet shedding gas and dust. Then the images sharpened. The coma surrounding 3I Atlas was not chaotic. It was layered, ordered, and geometric. In certain frames, 3 repeating arcs of reflected light curved around the nucleus, forming faint blue rings visible in infrared. NASA officials attributed these features to optical anomalies, but analysts from the Department of Defense challenged that explanation. Their infrared datasets aligned precisely with the observed light pulses. Each emission followed a strict timing pattern, repeating every 19.7 seconds. No natural comet had ever exhibited such regularity. That realization altered the tone of the meeting instantly. If the emissions were genuine and intentional, 3I Atlas was not simply passing through. It was active. Avi Loeb's name surfaced repeatedly during the briefing. Lawmakers referenced his public assertions that the object might be artificial and criticized NASA for sidelining him. One internal memo read aloud confirmed that Loeb had requested direct access to the HiRISE data weeks earlier and had been denied due to its classified status. When the lights came back on, the expressions around the table made the conclusion unmistakable. Congress had seen enough to understand that NASA's silence was not born of uncertainty, but of control. The agency was withholding evidence that challenged established laws of celestial motion. After the meeting, several attendees confirmed that an emergency directive had been issued to expand observation of 3I Atlas using both ground-based observatories and military satellites. Funding was quietly diverted from unrelated programs into a newly formed task force, codenamed Project Harbinger. Its mission was clear: continuous surveillance of anomalous celestial objects displaying potential non-natural behavior.